Right, so welcome to a Black Dragon Miniatures game review, and today's game is going to be Burrows and Badgers by Michael Lovejoy. Okay, so this is a game that has only recently come to my attention, I'll be honest with you. It's been out for a couple of years now, and the miniature range has been expanded over that period of time, mainly through Kickstarter, but now they've got some I think there's about 117 models within the range. And as I say, it's only recently come to my attention because I've been building some Necromunda terrain during lockdown and that kind of thing. I got chatting to an old Games Workshop chappie, Mr. Tim Eaglin, otherwise known as the Magraphia, and he basically built some terrain for this, and I was like, and it sort of sparked my interest, and I had a chat to him, and basically he effectively said, look, if I only ever have one game, I can only ever keep one game, which one would it be? The answer was Burrows and Badgers. So I was like, well, that's a pretty good recommendation, I'll go check it out. So bought the book, read the book, and to be honest with you, again, having only played a few games of it, it's probably, if there was one game, and I've got a lot of games, but if there was one game that I'd keep the miniatures for, because they are fantastic, I'll show you those in a bit, but also the rules, I think it might actually be this. This might be it. You know, after 30 years plus of wargaming, this could be the one, guys. So anyway, I'm going to tell you about it, and run through bits and bobs, and then I'll put a link to a demo game, and hopefully we'll see some more content and a full campaign coming soon to this YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Subscribe now, and that will save me a load of aggro. So anyway, so what is Burrows and Badgers? So let's get on with it. So basically it's an anthropomorphic skirmish game, and you can play it literally as a skirmish game. You can just throw some models down on the table and play a game, no problem at all. But that's really not what it's designed for. It's designed for campaigns, taking a warband on a journey. So again, think badgers, weasels, stoats, foxes, that type of thing in Mordheim. Okay, so if you're from a GW background, it's basically a much better version of Mordheim, and it's got badgers with hammers. What could be better? What could be better than that? Oh, and adders that cast spells and stuff, so it's pretty good. So, so effectively what you do, you have a warband, and that can comprise really anything from about 3 to 10 models. So again, the buy-in for the game, you're looking at probably somewhere between 25 to 35 pounds, thereabouts. On the Oathsworn website there are a couple of starter warbands which I think are 27 pounds. Got to be a bit careful with Oathsworn warbands or with the website. All the prices are plus VAT. It does state that, but I'm fairly sure that by law you should actually include now the actual price as the final amount. Shipping's fairly fair though, it's $3.50 no matter what you order, okay? But obviously just be a little bit careful of that when you start totting it up. You've got 20% to add at the end. So I think the only feedback I would give them is really they should have their price inclusive of VAT, and on the invoice it should then deduct it back off, okay, because that can get a bit confusing for some. All right, so that's the only bit you need to be a bit wary of. So basically you've got 4 factions, which again, if you just throw models down, I wouldn't bother with the factions. They are very much more for the campaign side of things. 1 or 2 give you stat upgrades, which obviously is fine for a one-off battle, but others will give you special equipment, or they'll give you other perks that are more campaign orientated. So if you're just running a one-off battle, don't bother with the allegiances. So from that point of view, other than that, you've got those 4 factions there. Apparently there are maybe 1 or 2 more coming, okay? But that's something that, again, just need to be aware of. Dice-wise, you need pretty much every dice known to man, but only 1 of each. So you need a D4, D6, D8, D10 and D12, possibly a D20 as well. There are one or two things that could possibly involve a D20, but they are very rare. So the way it works is it's on a roll-off basis. So, for example, if you were hitting someone in combat, you would look at the attacker's strike value, and then you take the defender's block value. So the attack value might be D8, the defense value might be D6. So your defender would roll D6, attacker would roll D8, and you basically roll the dice, and then you look, if it's a positive value for the attacker, then that's the amount you've won by. All right, so if I'd rolled a 7 and the defender rolled a 4, I'd have won by 3. So that effectively then creates, winning by 3 creates the amount of wounds that are caused, which I think is similar to Frostgrave in that regard. But I must admit I'm not a massive Frostgrave player. And then with those 3 wounds, you would tick off the wounds on the chart for the defender. Obviously, if the defender wins, no problem. There are skills that will add stuff and weapons that will add stuff. So, for example, a sword will add +1 strength. So, obviously, it doesn't add anything to the strike value, okay, but it adds +1 to the damage. So, you'd won by 3. Then you apply modifiers to your strike, which are done by skills. Once you've worked out your strike value, you then work out the damage. So the damage is the difference in the strike value to the block value, plus any extra strength bonuses there. Then that's deducted by effectively armor and the toughness of the individual model. Okay, so a little bit confusing maybe for some, but we'll go through that in a minute. All right, and every animal in the game has 16 life points. So a mouse has 16 life points, and a dirty great big badger has 16 life points. The big difference is what a tough rule. So a tough rule, for example, with a badger, it will say you have tough 3 for the sake of argument. Take the example I've just given you. Got a difference of 3 strike value, but you take away tough from that. So tough 3 deducts 3. So even though the mouse had won the combat, it hasn't actually done any damage because the badger's so tough he removes 3 points of damage immediately. Okay, so that is a big factor. Wizards, because they are a little bit gnarly and obviously spent too much time reading books and not enough down the gym, have a delicate rule and a weak rule, which means that they're not very effective in combat, and also delicate would add 1 to the damage. So you've got that example again of 3 becoming the damage. With delicate, adds another 1 to it, becomes 4. Okay, so take 4 wounds, and that's how that works. All right, so you're never going to have a mouse with tough unless it's through armor. Okay, so armor then also stacks, and everything stacks. So that's how that side of it briefly works. So how do you choose a warband? Basically, whatever takes your fancy. You could do an entire faction of mice, entire faction of badgers, whatever you want. Now, if you are limiting to 1 species, there are different rules for that. However, if you are having a mix, which I think most people probably do, then that allows you the benefit of having somebody who can move through terrain unhindered, somebody who can move through water, so you could have a frog or some other sort of semi-aquatic animal. You could have a bird, so you can fly across the board and ignore terrain and that kind of thing. And then obviously you can have your big hitters like your foxes, your cats, your dogs, that kind of thing. Okay, and I think really that's probably where most people really sort of see it, is having a band of animals as opposed to 1 specific race. But there are some advantages obviously if you do that, and some disadvantages. Okay, so to start Warband, you have 350 pennies, which is how everything's pointed in this game. And with that, what you need to do is basically buy your Warband. And each animal, based on its stat profile, will have a different value in pennies. And then you can add weapons and armour, magical staffs, pouches, spell ingredients, healing potions, etc., etc. So as I say, very akin to sort of the Mordheim of the past and any other sort of those sort of skirmish RPG type games. Magic users do cost you an extra 5 gold. Sorry, not gold, pennies. Okay, could be gold pennies. Who knows? And effectively, that brings with it one spell. So you basically pay one spell per 5 pennies. But in turn, the more you've studied, the weaker you become. So for every level, effectively, or every spell you have, you also increase your delicate weak by 1, which is obviously a drawback. So you really need to protect your magic casters, but they can turn the tide of battle, or they can be totally ineffective. Okay, so as is the best way. Unlike in Warhammer 8th edition, where you just went, ooh, killed something, an entire unit gone. This, not that at all. Again, there are some benefits to having magic users, but they can be quite expensive, and also if you can get someone in there, specifically like birds of prey, then you can take the wizards out fairly easily. As I said before, you can only have a maximum of 10 models. The way that these are based is on round bases. I guess there's probably no real reason why you couldn't use square bases if you really wanted to, because obviously it's skirmish games, so there's no angles. You've got no flank attack, none of that. But obviously it's up to you. The key thing is size of base though. So you have the small and medium guys on one size base, then you go up to the large creatures, and then you've got the massive creatures. Okay, the maximum amount of massive creatures you can have in a warband is 3, and the maximum large creatures in a warband is 6. Okay, but there's no minimum numbers of anything. So if you really want an entire army of shrews, okay, the only cap is the fact that you've got 10. So 10 shrews, you're going to have a lot of money left over, because I think they're only like 20 pennies each or something. So again, do the maths on that. However, could be fun. And hey, you've got plenty of money to buy reinforcements when they all die. So that's a win. So basically onto the allegiances. Nice and straightforward. There's 4, as we said before. You've got the Royalists, who are loyal to King Redwolf. Okay, so these are the effectively the main army, if you like. So they're well trained. Okay, so they allow for 2 of your warband to increase their strike level by 1. So what that basically means, if your basic stat is strike D8, increasing it by 1 will take it to D10, but you cannot go above D12. So if you've already got someone who's got a D12 strike, you can't increase him, okay, because you can't go higher than D12. All right, but you get 2 bonuses there. And as I say, if you were playing just literally a one-off skirmish where you just literally throwing some models down without any campaign element, this is why you don't include these, or you basically both choose the same one, because it can be a little bit unfair on the free beasts, which we'll come to in a sec. So the next one on the list is rogues. Okay, so these are basically your Robin Hood Men in Tights type thing. So basically they are stealthy and cunning. So they get 2 guys who can increase their concealment by 1 level, again up to maximum of D12, and this will allow them to hide and ambush a lot better. Also, the other advantage is you get 2 extra fate points per game. Okay, so every warband gets 10 fate points, which you can use to re-roll. And they will get 12. All right, in scenarios there are other ways to earn those, but effectively a fate. Well, I said a re-roll, so let's rewind that just a sec. So it's not a re-roll as such. Basically, what a fate point does, if you really want to take this cat out, okay, you can spend a fate point to roll an extra dice. So, for example, if I was attacking, I've got D12s. And I really want to make sure I get the best opportunity I can spend a fate point. By doing that before I roll, I now roll 2 D12s and choose which one I want. Okay, so that's how the fate points work. All right, so that's that. So it's not a re-roll as such, it's a extra chance of getting a better roll. All right, and obviously you've only got a finite amount of fate points. Free beasts being the next allegiance. They have fingers in pies. So, as I say, this is one where you get more benefits within the campaign side of things, but it does allow you 3 rolls on the rare table for free. So basically you get free stuff at the beginning. So if you maxed out your 350 point warband, you may end up with 400 pennies worth of warband, but you don't get any stat increases, which, as I say, in a one-off game, probably I'd take the stat increases personally. But again, I'm not an expert on this game. So maybe someone will, if I'm wrong, put the comments down below. But as I say, for a campaign benefit, I think that's brilliant. The fact you get better rolls on that table is great, and obviously you can always get stat increases through spending experience that you can gain through the skirmishes and get your stat increases that way. The last one is wild beasts. So this one is again one of those that very dependent on terrain. Effectively what it allows you to do is ignore all difficult terrain with the exception of water. Now when we come on to things like movement and stuff, it will obviously become apparent. Quite situational with that one, and again no stat increases as such. So if you're playing on very terrain heavy boards, then great, wild beast's going to love that. If you're playing in a town and everything's paving slabs, no benefit at all. So again, if you're playing a one-off game, again, I would personally probably just forget the allegiances. All right. If you're playing more than that, then so be it. All the best. So that's basically the game in a nutshell. We'll show you some miniatures now and see what basically you can, and I'm going to just pull these from the Oathsworn website, so because again the paint jobs on them are great, and it will show you basically what you can, give you an idea of a little bit of a montage of what you can have in this game to whet your appetite. So that's the end of part 1, and part 2 is going through the rules themselves. So please do check that out, and as I say, if you do enjoy the content, please do subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.